our group comprising of myself, Farhat, Ram, Harshav, Anusha, and Joshua. We have done a pestle analysis on a textile company named Roots, which is one of the most globally acclaimed Canadian textile company founded in the year 1973 in Ontario. The textile industry has grown competitive worldwide, and there are still many gaps in the efforts of promoting and achieving economic and social growth, keeping in mind the sustainability and environment friendly factors. We are aware that different countries are affected by different external factors. That is why the corporate social responsibility strategies exist. We are expecting that the global market for sustainable textile industry would grow from 48.5 billion to 78.5 billion in the year 2024. When we analyze the political factors, the first thing that comes to our mind is the trade policies. Now, trade agreements and changes to tariffs, quotas, and other trade regulations can have a significant impact on the textile business. Over the past 20 years, lower tax legislation has ensured, that Roots as a company has been profited beneficially. The results include a lot of increased investments in research and development, and it gave a lot of profitability to the company as well. But because there is a rising in inequality, there are chances of the Canadian government to bring about new regulations. Talking about the labor, because the textile industry depends on cheap labor cost, any change in the law for the labor wages can have considerable impact or effect on this textile industry. Any increase in the labor cost will actually reduce the profit margins, and eventually it will cause a decline in the demand because the prices of the textile companies would increase, and this can act as a minor threat to the growth of the industry. Environmental regulations. Textile industry is very well known for having environmental impact. The governments around the world have implemented various aggregates to address this issue. The regulations can affect the cost of the production and also the feasibility of certain production methodologies. Roots, as such, has managed to it has to manage the diverse regulations because it has its footprints in, across different markets across the globe. Over the last few years, Canada and other emerging economies have changed the regulation regarding not only the market entry, but also how the companies in apparel and accessories can operate in the local market. Talking about the most important factor, which is the political instability that we face. Because it breeds a lot of uncertainty. Political unrest in any nation can have a deep impact on the textile business operating in that area, because something as simple as, the political turmoil or violence can stop the transportation of the products or even halt the production as such. Now, because Roots has international operations, it must develop rules which are very much tailored for the needs of the accessory industry and the apparel industry in that particular nation. Finally, talking about the government subsidies that is provided to the textile industry, we know that the government does provide the subsidies in the form of a lot of benefits from tax perspective or even for the cost. Now, by lowering the cost, it helps in the company to lower the cost. By lowering the cost, these incentives can help the businesses to become more competitive. Now, Roots can definitely take advantage of this, and but there is a challenge. The availability of these resources and the timeline provided for these subsidies is not very definite, and it is difficult to achieve. Over to Joshua. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And of course, maybe one of the most important factors in pestle is the economic factor. And when we talk about economic factor, it talks about the totality of the microeconomic conditions, the trends and policies that have impacted on organizations such as Roots in its business, in its operation, which has affected its profitability, generally economic situation. And when we are looking at the economic factors, we'll be looking at other factors under it, which includes the economic growth. Definitely, Canada has been growing, and it has reflected in the way Root has emerged over the years, growing from a small business into a large conglomerate that it is today. So, and this has been affected by the economic situation of Canada. We can see that the consumer spending has actually increased and market has expanded. So the economic growth has been favorable to Root. And also there have been favorable trade agreements, so that this company has grown from being a local Canadian company to another international brand. What you have note is the interest and inflation rate. The interest rate talks about the rate at which we can borrow money, we can borrow fund for expansion purposes. And these have been favorable to Root, such that the business has been able to grow from one location to the other and expand its business. And also, the consumer price index have been such that the inflation rate has been kept at a cap that is very, very considerate. And that's why the company has been able to compete within the environment, and they become a leader in the industry. Then we talk about the exchange rate. Because of the fact that this company is growing in an environment where it has influence across the border. So because normally the higher the exchange rate, the more difficult it is for consumers to come from another economy. But now with the favorable and stable economic exchange rate that we have, it has been able to affect Root positively, and Root has been able to expand, its operation, and so that the currency valuation has been stable. And according to Benchmark Okoye and Faridana in 2016, they have looked at the approach that when we have a negative interest, such that it will induce consumption, and this will make people to be able to purchase goods and services. In the economy, people can use their credit card because the interest rate is very, very cheap and affordable. So you don't even need to have the cash to make your purchases. And mind you, clothing is one of the essential needs. And because Root is not just providing clothing, there are some premium commodities that they produce. And the premium product is not necessarily needed for survival, but to have an upper class lifestyle. And therefore, with credit facility in the economy, this can be achieved. Then when we look at other things like trade tariff, fiscal policies, and monetary policies, we talk about the taxation, the value-added tax that people pay, the import tariffs, and the trade agreement. These have actually been in favorable condition to Root, and consumers are able to purchase goods without having to pay an astronomical value-added tax or other consumption taxes that will have discouraged them from consuming product that is being produced by Root. And also, when we talk about tariffs, when people come to buy goods, people don't need to pay exorbitant import and export tariff that can affect our international trade negatively. And then when we talk about income distribution and unemployment rate, in Canada, the employment rate has been so generous to the extent that it allows households to have enough disposable income to buy goods and services, to buy goods especially produced by Root, the clothing, and they're able to afford a kind of lifestyle that is moderate, which they desire. And then their purchasing power is so encouraged because employment is readily available and income is readily distributed. During the time of taxation, there is relief. So with this relief, um, employees, potential citizens are able to buy goods and services and they patronize Root products. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be covering the social cultural factors. So this is one of the most important factors while analyzing the Pestle Root Canada textile company. So being a textile company, there are many things we have to consider in social cultural factors. So one of the most important factor is cultural sensitivity. Canada being a country of the immigration, here many peoples live from the different countries. So Root Canada need to respect all the cultures from the different category of the old. So they have to respect, believe, and they have to promote the ethical behavior. So another point is environmental awareness. So Root Canada being a textile company, they have to more focus on environmental friendly goods, and they have to place effective production techniques in the place and promote the recycle initiatives. So regarding the social obligation, it is always suggested that a profit is not the important factor. The most important factor is the social. So in return of the profit they have to give something to the social. So CSR and the other charitable works are the most important factor we have to consider. So another point is ethical sourcing. So Root Canada being a textile company, so they have to more focus on the quality of the product. They have to promote warranty guarantee services. And another point is demographic feature. Obviously, with the different variation of the product, they have to manufacture based on the age, gender, based on the economic level and the region where the people live. And another point is custom value and the population. Root Canada need to understand the value of the various demographic. For example, they have to provide wide range of the product, or they have to develop the different collection of the product like clothes, shoes, jackets. And another point is cultural trade and attitude change. So Root Canada, they have to analyze the cultural trade. What is the trend going in the market? Like every time the preference of the customer will change, the fashion will be different, and the desired item will be different. So they have to seriously analyze and study the market so that they can succeed in the market. So last but not least, market trend, social media, and the changes in the lifestyle, this will make huge impact in the marketing of the Root Canada. So they have they should have the strong marketing plan, and they have to respect the customer experience, and they have to target the required customer in the social media. So rest of the part will be continued by our next member.
Hello, Professor. I will be talking about the aspects of technological environment that affects the apparel industry. To give a brief background, the apparel industry is one of the earliest and most globalized trades in the world, and it's a starting point for many countries in terms of export-oriented industrialization. So in here, we can see technology has played a significant role to drastically advance the apparel industry and also to expand to more globalized operations. However, in terms of Canada, because other lower wages paying countries and countries who have better technological advances, in terms of Canada to gain a competitive advantage, technological aspects have to be incorporated into all parts of the value chain, such as its designs, marketing, strategies, production, security, securing the clientele, logistics, and servicing. And also in terms of innovation, Apple companies must always keep investing on new technologies in order to cater to the changing demands of the customer base. Also, not only investing one time, but companies have to focus on keep on changing their technologies in according to the changes of the technological environments. The latest technologies in the apparel industry are novel textile, smart textile, 3D technologies, and also AI and data analytics. In terms of Roots Canada, we can see that novel textile and AI and data analytics is being incorporated to their operations, especially in their new material developments, such as using cancer fabric in order to develop their fabrics, using of cancer material, which is a natural raw material that they use to produce their fabrics. There are several determinants of competitive advantage that relates to the apparel industry, and that will be incorporating technological developments to their design, product marketing, and logistics and servicing. If we go on to the next slide, we can see that Roots Canada, recently they integrated their distribution centers, their e-commerce, and their operations centers into one facility where all the operations have been integrated through an advanced e-commerce platform as well as advanced warehouse management system. So we can see Roots Canada adapting these technological advances in order to gain a competitive advantage. Thank you.
Thank you, Harshi. Now I'm going to talk about environmental element. The environment is a significant aspect that cannot be overlooked when addressing the corporate social responsibility and sustainability. Due to the usage of chemicals and dyes during the manufacture, the textile industry drastically adds to environmental pollution. It produces a considerable amount of hazardous waste during manufacture, which needs to be carefully controlled. During the drying process, this textile sector must consume much water and produce much wastewater that is highly colored and contains a variety of impurities. Especially residual colors can make up as much as 50% of the dyes that are reactive in the initial dye process, dye load. However, some researchers have revealed that some textile companies are moving toward using certified organic cotton and recycled cotton fabrics, reducing climate change impact. Let's see how Roots perform their production process in environmental friendly manner. Roots Canada is more concerned about the environment. They work closer to nature and towards a future for our planet using natural fibers and materials made of plants and animals for their products. When they were getting natural materials from farms, they addressed the problem of overgrazing, which can result in wasteland, soil erosion, and desertification. They are working to advance ethical environmental practices through the leather supply chain as a member of Leather Working Group. The Leather Working Group is a global multi-stakeholder organization that promotes ethical leather production through best practices and beneficial social environmental change. The fibers which they are used, which are certified compostable and biodegradable, are made using closed loop method that uses 99% solvents and water. They use wool ethically procured from farms that adhere to 5 freedoms of animal welfare to produce their products. The 5 freedoms of animals welfare is a set of animal welfare rights that and a framework to protect farm animals. By doing their production in an environmental friendly manner, Roots Canada hope to draw customer by creating the uh, impression that they also supported ethically leather production by purchasing their products. Roots Canada uses recyclable, biodegradable materials that are sourced from natural resources. Thank you.
So legal factors in this section, we have many points to cover. So one of the most important point is protection of intellectual property. Roots Canada, being a global company, it has its own brand, it has its own value. So it is most important to protect its brand from copying. So they have to register for copyright and patent. So another point is they have to comply with the various trade law which exist. Some of the popular trade law are North American Free Trade Agreement, South Asian Free Trade Agreement, and World Trade Organization. A different country have their different trade law, either domestically or internationally. Root Canada need to consider all the uh, trade law before operation. Next point is labor law. It is most important to keep their employee happy. So Root Canada must consider about health insurance of employee, granting of the mandatory sick leave or vacation or paid time, maternity leave and other parental leave. All these things they have to consider as the important factors. Another point is consumer protection law. So it is most important to product safety and correct labeling and ethical advertising. It is also important. So health and the safety law and legal registration. This is the most important section of the legal factor. So there are various health guidelines that need to be followed. So Root Canada being a global company, they have to follow labor code, and most important factor is they have to contribute to the government by complying with the goods and service tax, value added tax, and by doing yearly audit. They have to help to the government by following all statutory obligation, either trade law or labor law or consumer protection law or health and registration. So moving to the next point, I'll be concluding all the presentation here. So we have discussed about the political factor here. We talked about all labor policy, labor legislation, environmental restriction, and in economic factor, we talked about growth, interest rate, currency rate, foreign exchange. In social factor, we talked about environmental awareness, cultural sensitivity. In technological factor, we talked about material development, how what is the manufacturing processes, supply chain management, and its impact on the operation and competitiveness. And in environmental factor, we talked about environmental law, sustainable behavior, and most important, social responsibility. And in legal sector, we talked about compliance of the international labor law, domestic law, license and registration, consumer protection. So Root Canada being a global textile company, it is most important. They have to consider pestle as the main factors, important factors for their business. So we end up our presentation here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.